A millionaire girl was getting drenched in the rain when a poor boy gave her shelter for one night. But what happened that night, no one could have imagined. On that dark, stormy night, it felt like the sky was pouring out all its pain onto the earth. Heavy winds and crashing lightning made the atmosphere terrifying. On that deserted road, a girl was walking forward, completely soaked. She was about 26 years old. Her expensive clothes were now fully drenched. Her phone was dead in her hand, and fear was clearly visible on her face. Her name was Kiara. She owned a company worth crores. But at this moment, she was completely alone and helpless. A little while ago, her car had met with an accident. The driver was injured, and there was no network. The other cars had moved ahead, leaving her stranded on that dark road. The rain was getting heavier, and her steps were becoming unsteady. Then in the distance, she saw a faint light coming from a small house. It was a mud house with a tin roof. A ray of hope lit up inside her. She quickly reached there and knocked on the door. From inside, a voice came. "Who is it?" Kiara said in a weak voice, "I need help." There was silence for a few moments. Then the door opened. A boy was standing in front of her. He was around 28 years old. He wore simple clothes, but there was honesty in his eyes. His name was Arjun. He was poor and lived alone. Without asking too many questions, he opened the door wider. "Come inside. It's raining very heavily outside." Kiara stood there for a moment, staring at him. She couldn't believe that a stranger was helping her so easily. She slowly stepped inside. The house was small, but there was a strange warmth in it. In one corner, there was a stove and an old cot. Arjun immediately handed her a towel and said, "Dry yourself, otherwise you'll fall sick." Kiara took the towel, and relief was visible in her eyes. She asked softly, "Do you live alone?" Arjun smiled lightly and replied, "Yes, I've gotten used to it now." The pain hidden behind his smile was clear. Kiara understood, but stayed quiet. Arjun put water on the stove and said, "I'll make some tea." Kiara refused at first, but he said, "In humanity, we don't say no." Those words went straight to her heart. A little later, he gave her a cup of hot tea. As soon as Kiara took a sip, she felt peace. Outside, the storm was still raging, but inside there was calm. Kiara asked softly, "Can I stay here tonight?" Arjun replied without thinking, "The house is small, but the heart isn't. Whatever space there is, it's yours too." Gratitude shone in Kiara's eyes, and she decided to stay. She had no idea that this one night was going to change her entire life, and that the story hidden in Arjun's heart was also about to come out. The rain was still pouring heavily. The sound of raindrops falling on the tin roof had become like the music of an unfinished story. Sitting in one corner of that small house, Kiara held a cup of tea in her hands, and there was a strange peace in her eyes. For the first time in her life, she felt that someone was looking at her not for her money or status, but as a human being. Arjun was sitting near the stove, roasting rotis. There was tiredness on his face, but every action carried warmth. Kiara kept looking at him again and again, then lowering her eyes, as if she couldn't understand herself. Arjun offered her a roti and said, "Eat something. You look hungry." Kiara wanted to refuse at first, but then quietly took the roti. The moment she took the first bite, she realized this wasn't just food. It was a piece of someone's heart. She had eaten in expensive hotels all her life, but she had never tasted anything like this. Both stayed silent for a while, and only the sound of rain could be heard. Suddenly Kiara asked, "Why did you open the door so easily? What if I had been a bad person?" Arjun smiled lightly and said, "Eyes tell a lot, and there was fear in your eyes, not evil." Hearing this, Kiara fell silent. Maybe for the first time, someone had understood her so closely. A little later, Arjun walked over to a picture hanging on the wall. In the picture was an elderly woman whose face reflected simplicity and love. Kiara asked, "Who is she?" Arjun's eyes became moist. He cleared his throat and said, "She was my mother. She is no longer in this world." The atmosphere became heavy. Arjun continued, "After she left, I've been managing this house and this life all alone." A strange pain rose in Kiara's heart. She said softly, "Sorry, I shouldn't have asked." Arjun shook his head and said, Pain becomes lighter when it's shared. Those words touched Kiera's heart. For the first time, she started sharing what was in her own heart. She said, I have everything, money, fame, status, but inside I still feel empty. Arjun looked at her and said, emptiness cannot be filled with money. It needs love and belonging. Hearing this, Kiera's eyes became moist. Suddenly, lightning struck outside, and a strong gust of wind blew, forcefully opening the door. Arjun quickly got up to close it, but as he looked outside, he saw movement in the darkness. His heart started beating fast. He immediately closed the door and looked at Kiera. Fear was clear on both their faces. Then there was a loud knock on the door. The banging sound made the whole house shake. Kiera got scared and stood close to Arjun. Arjun composed himself and said, Don't be afraid. Let me see who it is. But the knocking kept getting louder. Finally, Arjun gathered courage and slowly opened the door. As soon as the door opened, strong wind and rain rushed in. A man was standing outside. He was in bad shape and shivering badly. Panting, he said, Close the door. Quickly. Arjun immediately closed the door. Kiera asked fearfully, Who are you? He replied, My name is Samir and some people are after me. The atmosphere became even more tense. Arjun asked with suspicion, Why? Samir said, I didn't do anything wrong, but I got into trouble with some dangerous people. Kiera and Arjun looked at each other. The house no longer felt safe. There was fear in Kiera's mind, but humanity in her heart too. After thinking for a few moments, she said, Okay, you can stay here tonight as well, but if anything goes wrong, it will be your responsibility. Samir immediately thanked them. Arjun gave him dry clothes too, and asked him to sit near the stove. But now the atmosphere had changed. All three were silent, listening only to the sounds outside. Then, in the distance, they heard voices of some people, as if they were searching for someone. Arjun looked out the window and said, Those people are probably coming here. Samir's face turned pale with fear. Kiera's heart started beating rapidly. Arjun quickly secured the door latch and dimmed the stove fire. The house became darker. The sound of footsteps was getting closer. Someone shouted loudly, Look here! He must be hiding somewhere around. Hearing this, all three held their breath. Kiera felt a fear for the first time where her money was useless. She looked at Arjun and said softly, Whatever happens, we are together now. Arjun nodded. At that moment, a shadow appeared outside the door. Then came a loud knock and a voice. Open the door. We know he is inside. Samir started trembling and said, They will kill me. Kiera held his hand and said, Stay calm. Arjun's mind was racing. He said, There's a small path at the back, but going there is dangerous. Then a powerful kick landed on the door and the latch shook. Time was running out. Arjun quickly pushed Samir behind a cupboard and said, Don't make any sound. Kiera immediately put out the stove, and the house plunged into darkness. Suddenly the door broke open, and 3-4 men rushed inside. They had sticks in their hands and anger in their eyes. They looked around and asked, Has anyone come here? Arjun composed himself and said, No one has come here. Kiera's breathing had become fast. One of the men started moving toward the cupboard where Samir was hiding. The atmosphere was filled with tension. Suddenly Arjun stepped forward and said loudly, There is no one here. You people have come to the wrong place. There was so much confidence in his voice that everyone paused for a moment. Then someone from outside said, He's not here. He must have run ahead. Hearing this, those men slowly went outside. The door was broken, and raindrops were now coming inside. For a while, no one spoke. Then Samir came out, sat on the floor, and started crying. He said, If you people hadn't been here, I wouldn't be alive today. Kiera said softly, God brings people together to help each other. Arjun stayed quiet, but a lot was changing inside him too. He realized that real strength is not in money, but in humanity. The night slowly passed, but no one could sleep. All three were lost in their thoughts. Kiera was understanding herself for the first time. Arjun was standing with the pain of his past, and Samir was fighting his fear. Then, in the distance, a rooster crowed, and a faint light started spreading in the sky. Morning was about to break, But this story was not over yet, because the real truth was still to come. As the soft morning light entered the small house, the fear of the night slowly began to fade. Outside, the rain had stopped, and the fragrance of wet earth filled the air. But inside the house, the hearts of three people were still heavy. Kiera stood near the broken door, looking outside. Every moment of the night was replaying in her mind. Arjun was sitting by the stove making tea, as if nothing had happened, but tiredness was clear in his eyes. Samir sat in one corner with his head bowed, lost in deep thought. After some time, Arjun made 3 cups of tea and placed them in front of them. He said, "Here, this will give you some peace." Kiera picked up the cup, her hand still shaking slightly. She took a sip and then looked at Samir and said, "Now tell the truth. What exactly is the matter?" Samir avoided eye contact at first, but then took a deep breath and said, "I used to work in a warehouse where illegal things were happening. When I refused to be part of it, they threatened me. When I complained to the police, those people came after me." Hearing this, both Kiera and Arjun were shocked. Arjun said, "You did the right thing, but now you don't need to be afraid." Kiera stayed quiet for a while. Then in a firm voice she said, "If you are standing with the truth, then I am with you too." Samir's eyes filled with hope. Arjun also nodded in support. Suddenly Kiera's phone turned on, and several missed calls and messages started appearing. Her manager and family members were searching for her. She looked at the phone for a few moments and then suddenly switched it off. Arjun asked, "Why did you turn off the phone?" Kiera replied, "For the first time, I've got a chance to understand myself. I don't want to go back to that world right now." Arjun fell silent, but a slight smile appeared on his face. Just then, the sound of vehicles came from outside, and all 3 got startled. Arjun opened the door and saw police standing outside. Relief came on Kiera's face, but Samir got scared. He said nervously, "If they find out, they won't spare me." Then a police inspector stepped forward and asked, "Is there a girl named Kiera here?" Kiera stepped forward and said, "Yes, I am Kiera." The inspector said, "We have been looking for you since last night. Your car met with an accident." Kiera nodded and immediately said, "But right now there is an important matter." She pointed towards Samir and said, "He is a witness. He needs protection." The inspector became serious and asked, "Is this true?" Samir gathered courage and told everything. The police immediately assured him protection and said, "Now there is no need to be afraid." Tears came in Samir's eyes. Arjun breathed a sigh of relief. But then Kiera said, "I will also help in this case." The inspector asked in surprise, "Why?" Kiera replied, "Because this is not just one man's fight. It is a fight for truth and humanity." Hearing this, respect for Kiera grew even more in Arjun's eyes. The police started taking Samir with them. Before leaving, Samir touched the feet of Arjun and Kiera and said, "You both have given me a new life." After the police left, silence fell over the house again. But this time the silence felt different. Kiera looked at Arjun and said, "You have changed me too." Arjun smiled lightly and said, "Maybe all this was already inside you. It just needed the right time to come out." There was a different sparkle in Kiera's eyes, as if she had started seeing life from a new perspective. But at that very moment, shadows of some people appeared again in the distance. It seemed the danger had not completely gone away. Arjun looked out the window, and his face became serious. He said softly, "Looks like the story is not over yet." Kiera said in a firm voice, "This time we will not be afraid. We will face it." The wind started blowing strongly again, and the atmosphere once more filled with tension. The morning light had now spread completely. But outside the small house, danger was circling again. Arjun looked out the window and saw some men standing at a distance, talking among themselves. Their body language clearly showed they had come back. Kiera took a deep breath and said, "Now is not the time to run. It is time to face them." Arjun also gathered courage and stood near the door. Suddenly, those men started moving quickly towards the house. The atmosphere filled with fear again, but this time all 3 were prepared. Kiera immediately called the police inspector and gave him a location. From the other side, assurance came that the force was on the way. Meanwhile, loud knocking started on the door again. The sound of banging echoed throughout the house. Those men shouted, "Open the door or we will break it." Arjun looked at Kiera and said, "Whatever happens, we will not back down now." Kiera nodded and stood in front of the door. Then with a powerful kick, the door broke halfway and two men rushed inside. Anger was visible on their faces and dangerous intentions in their eyes. They threatened Kiera and Arjun and asked, "Where's that boy?" Kiera, without any fear, said, "There's no one here." One of the men moved forward and tried to push Arjun, but Arjun caught his hand. For the first time, the fear inside him had turned into courage. A scuffle started between them. Just then, the sound of police sirens came from outside. Those men panicked and tried to run. Within seconds, the police entered and caught all the goons. The inspector looked at Kiera and Arjun and said, "You both showed great courage. Now everything is safe." Suddenly, peace returned to the atmosphere. The danger was completely over. Kiera breathed a sigh of relief and looked at Arjun. Gratitude and respect were clearly visible in her eyes. A little later, the police took everyone away and silence fell outside the house again. But this time it was a silence of peace. Kiera slowly walked to Arjun and said, "I have seen everything in life, but today for the first time I saw real humanity." Arjun smiled lightly and said, "Humanity never sees rich or poor. It only sees the heart." Kiera stayed quiet for a few moments, then said, "Will you come with me? I want you to work with me and start a new life." Arjun was a little surprised, but said in a calm voice, "If I go, I don't want to lose my identity." Kiera smiled and said, "I like your simplicity. I don't want to change it. That is your greatest strength." Hearing this, a light sparkle came in Arjun's eyes. He said softly, "Okay, but on one condition, we will always keep humanity above everything." Kiera immediately said, "That's a promise." There was a peaceful smile on both their faces, as if two different worlds had now come together on one path. That small hut had changed two lives. One found real peace, and the other found a new direction. With time, Kiera connected her business with social service, and Arjun started helping needy people along with her. Where there was once loneliness, now there was belonging. Where there was fear, now there was courage. And where there was only money, now there was humanity. This was the biggest lesson of that night. No matter how difficult the circumstances, if the heart is true, every darkness can end, and every morning brings new hope. This story is completely fictional. It has no connection with any person or event. Its only purpose is to spread the message of humanity and kindness. If you like this story, then like the video, and if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe.